Welcome to Decker Tech. I'm Aaron Decker, and today we're doing Nezglekt, or Nez, or Squidface, or whatever you want to call him, Cthulhu. You know, the nice, shiny, purpley one. Lots of fun. So, there's been a lot of response on the subscriptions. Thank you very much. I do now have the paperwork in with YouTube, so that has gone well. I still respond very well to praise and feedback, so please let me know what you like. And what you didn't like, and I'll make sure to include that in future videos. Without further ado, we got Nezglekt. He is technically a healer. I say technically because you got to be careful sometimes. I still kind of refer to him as a half healer instead of a full healer. That's because the healing is a side effect of applying debuffs to the enemy and dealing damage to the enemy. And most of that healing is going to be right here. At end of turn, any monsters alive with sight on mind on them will heal your team a little bit. And that's the key part, is the enemies have to be alive. So ideally you want Nezglekt to be going not last. And I think that's a key concern that a lot of people miss with him, is that Nezglekt should not be the last one on your team. There should be a damage dealer after him and before the enemies, so that on Nezglekt's turn he can put debuffs on all the enemies, make sure that they have lots of stacks on them without killing them, pass the turn, get this mental leech healing, and then the next player in the turn order gets to finish off all the monsters. And that's kind of hard since Nez is by default pretty slow. But that's just one major thing you got to play around with this mental leech, is it happens at the end of Nezglekt's turn, so he goes to pass the turn, but then if you pass the turn and give the turn to the enemy, they just beat up on your team again. So Nezglekt's not very good for finishing off the enemy. He's there to keep them alive and all debuffed and insane and crazy. For the talents, now this guide is going to be for Nezglekt healer, not the combo healer you may have seen in my Sylvie video, just a generic healing, debuffing machine. So we're not going to talk about some of the crazier cards here. So we're not going to go down this chilling gaze. We're not trying to damage people with hits. We're trying to do some healing. So Night Terror is our enchantment of choice here. This is really nice because, one, it puts a debuff on the bad guys, which heals a little. But mainly this zero cost, all resistance is -20. There's always one monster in the fight that's either super resistant to your damage type, super annoying, Colin. Like, there's certain monsters that just need a little extra love going to the grave, and Night Terror is all about helping with that. Next, we really want Resourceful. Mind Devourer, I have played with Mind Devourer. It is playable. It means you have to be going deeper into the insane route and trying to get this to trigger twice. You'll heal twice. You won't heal for twice as much as if you went Resourceful. I'll get into that later, but you'll trigger the heal twice, and that also puts insane out twice. It's just, overall, it's not going to compete with anything that does stuff like this, where Resourceful, anytime you play a skill, you get an energy refund. And man, are there so many good skills in the game, especially in the healer decks. So just that one energy rebate allows for so much more gameplay. And at the same time, it does give you, extra sight on all the enemies, which equates back to healing. So even though Mind Devourer triggers the heal twice, Resourceful makes that heal a little more effective, and it's giving that energy rebate. It's really that energy rebate that really makes this shine. Both of these are very valuable, Fated Future and Chosen One. When in doubt, pick Chosen One because it's a lot easier to play with. The hardest thing you have to remember is you have to keep spells in your deck to trigger this, because Resourceful says go skills and Chosen One says go spells. So there's kind of two different routes you got to go. So I've had many a game where I pick up the Chosen One and realize I only have one spell and it's Vanish, or some such like that. So this is a very powerful tool. It spreads the stacks on the enemies super fast, which equates more healing to you, and we'll talk about items later that could also equate to a lot of damage on the enemy. Don't mind the Insane on yourself. Insane on yourself heals the team. It just means you'll do a little less damage, and you'll need to dispel it if you're going any sort of damage route. And it also does make you powerful. Unfortunately, it doesn't make your whole team powerful, just you, but that's okay. It's there for the vulnerable and the massive amounts of debuffs on the enemies. And then Fated Future, this one's if you're trying to screw around with Disintegrates or Fireballs or Ice Comets, or these really big 8+ energy cost cards. Fated Future says, oh, by the way, it's free this turn. It is only until discarded, and it only lasts 2 uses. This can be placed on any hero, not just yourself. So this can be a lot of fun if you're playing a mageness combo. If you don't know what that is, maybe I'll talk about it later and show a video on it. But this is all about you're trying to make these super costed cards like 7+ happen. Faded Future can allow that for a couple turns, not indefinitely, not for like a Rin fight, but for a couple turns you can make that kind of stuff happen. Pairs really well with Maluka sometimes because she's notorious for casting a 6-cost spell a lot of the time. So that's one reason to pair him with Maluka. The bottom one, I normally go Omniscient because I like the +1 Inspire. I usually have at least one card in my deck that says plus Inspire, and or if you get the Straw Hat from that secret quest line, that's this is a really good person to put it on because of the bonus to Inspire. He's going slow, but it adds up pretty fast. And then of course there's Friendly Tadpole, which just says give a boon to everyone's deck. It does say put a little bit of Insane on your team, which lowers their damage very negligibly, increases your healing a little bit, but it's mainly that it's just a boon, which is a free card, and it gives your team 1 energy right away and 1 energy the next turn, and a little bit of healing and vitality. So this is just a, hey everyone, stay alive, have some energy, have a drink on me kind of thing. Oh, by the way, it's a tadpole in your eye, it's not a drink, but, you know, Nezglekt is weird. So both of these are super viable. I normally just do Omniscient because the tadpole's good, but I just like the +1 Inspire. I'm a fiend for Inspire. I normally have some sort of energy figured out on my team. So basically, if you need more energy, go Tadpole. If you need more Inspire, go this way. The problem with Omniscient is you do have to remember to have Inspire in your deck. It's not just like free cards to your team. It's extra cards when you give them cards. All right, that's enough about his talents. Let's get into his starting deck. So with Nezglekt, what can I remember about a starting deck? We got rid of the Scries. You're not going to keep the Scries in 99% of the cases. You're going to want to upgrade these Mental Shakes down to 1 cost so that you can actually afford to play them. These can stay with you for majority of the game if you want. Mind Blasts, I like to add these to the Vanish version just because it does a little bit of extra stacks and I don't want to be casting them repeatedly if I cycle through my deck a second time. If I'm going through my deck again, I don't want to be just Mind Blasting and Mind Shaking, although that is a fair enough way to kill off the enemies. I left Mind Visions in here as kind of a talking point. You can keep it throughout the entire game. It'll be a dead card for most of Act 1, Act 2, just because you're not going to be stacking Sight enough to make it a viable 2-cost damage card. But by the end of the game, you're going to want one back. The same thing with, shoot, where are they at? These Expected Prophecies. I took both of them out because they're basically a dead card until you get to your level 3 talent. And then it's a fantastic, amazing, beautiful card. But I'm used to playing that dead cards early on is much more of a hindrance than holding them until I can upgrade them. I'd rather just buy them back later. So Mind Visions and Expected Prophecy are both ones that you can keep. They'll be dead early on, but eventually you'll buy them back in or upgrade them in the future. Let's see, Clairvoyance. This is a classic Nez spell. It says, hey, look, put my debuff on everyone. That all the monsters get debuffs, which means we all get healing, and I'm doing damage to the enemy team. Very nice stuff. The 1-cost version is okay if you're having energy issues, but the reason I like the 2-cost is because this leaves your options open of you can pick up both Insane and or Sight items throughout the game to buff this card. The problem with the 1-cost Clairvoyance is you're building mainly just into the Sight build, which the Resourceful does in your talent tree, but some of your items you might be like, oh, I can't pick up that item because I really don't have many things that do mass amounts of Insane. Like, yes, these all do, the Mind Blast do Insane, but if you're leaning into just the Sight-only build, you're leaning onto these Mental Shakes and the 1-cost Clairvoyance. And then, of course, that feeds into the Mind Visions. Always want to pick up a Dispel Magic on your main healer. In this case, Nez is, in this guide, I assume Nez is going to be your main healer. If he's not, you might not have to pick this Dispel Magic up. But as you can see, Dispel Magic, one of the versions has a buffer. And your class card also has buffer. So ideally, you're picking up the buffer perk. If you don't, I recommend the Dispel 3. If you do pick it up, this one, either option, whichever one makes you happier. The reason I went with a buffer in this case is because Zek on my team hurts himself. So what I like to do is if I have reason, if I'm not using this to dispel elsewhere, I'll throw in a Zek as a little bit of buffer so that he can self-harm himself safely. So this is just one of those things that, depending on who you're playing with or how you're feeling about each version, they're both viable. Fanaticism, it's hit or miss on whether you need it. Some turns you'll draw the Fanaticism and be like, man, I don't have anything to spend energy on. Why do I have this in my deck? And then other turns you're like, man, I really wish I had Fanaticism because I have all these high cost cards. So it's just here to kind of smooth out, like, over a couple of turns your energy cost overall, so that you can cast the Clairvoyances and all these Mind Blasts and Shakes when they come up, and this Anthem of Hope, which is the last card we added. Courage is a powerful buff throughout the game, and then we can also transition it late game into a +1 Inspire for your level 5 talent. And in the meantime, just 2 energy for 1 Inspire is a good filler card. This is one that, if you draw it and you need to do something else, you can do the other thing. But if you draw it and, like, you don't really have to do anything, you can just give Inspire to your team. Because 2 energy for 4 cards, very good. It takes a full round to get the full effect, but it has so many versatile amounts of uses that you just grab it right away and keep using it. I do recommend the version with Inspire, though, because Inspire version, best version. Clarities is my go-to filler card for any healers. It is card neutral in the fact that you spend a card to give a card to someone else, so you didn't lose any cards there. It costs 0 energy, and it vanishes. So just in general, it helps me bring my deck size down. It can help me sort out who needs extra cards. And at the same time, it also has this Dispel on it. And in Act 1, the sheep do apply a noticeable amount of Insane. And there are some imps and some other monsters that apply slow. So in general, you'll get your mileage out of this. The other 2 versions I don't recommend because one doesn't vanish and one doesn't grant Inspire. So basic version is best version. Detoxify, you can't go wrong with this. Bleed stacks are aplenty in the first act. If you go green biome first, you won't regret the poison either. 2 detoxifies, you might regret having 2 in hand. 3 I definitely wouldn't do. 1 or 2 is a good number, and then it's just another source of buffer. So between this, Banish, and Dispel, you'll get a lot of mileage out of that buffer perk, which when we look at perks, you'll see what we've done there. And yeah, what do we got for cards here? So Nezglekt. Oh, I took out the I don't even like this card. What is it called? Curative something? If you're getting any value out of curative therapy, then I have questions about your deck size. The only way I can get this to work is if I make it 1 cost and if I'm running scries and stuff like that, because this doesn't even work with Banish. Banish vanishes the cards out of your teammate's deck. This, you have to either actively be discarding your team's deck to make it any noticeable amount, or I don't know. We can talk about, I've had hours of arguments about good or bad of this card. Just cut it and take my word for it. Unless you can find a really good use for it and you're super sold on it, just cut it and never look back. I know it's a rare and you're cutting 2 rares out of your deck, but it's a dead card 90% of the time. I guess we didn't talk about Banish. Nice thing about Banish is, remember that when you vanish a card out of a teammate's deck, it's just gone for that battle. So if sometimes you'll banish a card that's like a good card in their deck, but you just want them to do something else that turn. Like, hey, Maluka, I need you to get X card, so please let me banish your deck a little bit. And in multiplayer, you don't choose, they choose. So this is just a really nice card. It does... When you're playing these types of cards in multiplayer, you got to be really active about saying, hey, it's your turn. Like, you say, hey, I'm banishing you. Look at these cards, pick some. Because I've had many a game where someone plays Banish, and then the person thought they're done with their turn, and they walked away to get a drink or something, and they have to wait for them to come back. So it kind of messes up the multiplayer a little, but it makes for some fun memories. But this is really good for getting rid of injuries. If you have any from any events or some monsters put them in your deck, you can easily keep this for the entire game just for injuries. This is really all about how much mileage you personally get out of it. And if all else fails, it's just a 1-cost 4 buffer. So take that as you will. And I think I really can't think of... Normally I have something to search up here. So what, insane? Of the insane cards, you start with most of them. The hallucination's not so bad. In this team comp particularly, I could have run it because I actually had dark charges as my as one of my perks. But for the most part, these double dipping, like the ones that have 4 different effects on it, are really hard to maintain a valuable use out of them. This is some late game stuff we'll talk about later. Late game stuff we'll talk about later. I mean, I guess Spectral Missiles, if you pick one up early, is pretty good, and or Pandemonium. Pandemonium you won't be able to afford right away, but at least Spectral Missiles is in the 2-cost range. So if you want to craft one of these early or want to pick them up, it's a great damage option. I normally don't run it just because I'm not going to get as much mileage out of it with Nezglekt, but depending on your team comp or difficulty level, this might end up being a decent chunk of damage for you. I only mention it because I've seen it played a lot, and it's hit or miss on how well it does in general. All right, going to perks. Sorry, I get excited and I talk too much when sometimes I should just move the video along. So with Nezglekt, he's pretty slow, and like I said, you want him to go faster than at least 1 damage person on your team. So speed is important. He does later do some fast or slow spells, but there's such high charges on the cards that you don't need the +1 charge here. Mainly, you're just going to make sure you get as much energy as you can, and then sight. Particularly, I'd say stick with the +1 charges here, because your other viable option, well, this says it can't be dispelled. That's... No, most of the time when it gets dispelled, other things are going on, so you don't really have to worry about spending 3 points into it. I'd rather just, most of the time, get the benefit. Like, this prevents 1 situation out of 10 combats from happening, whereas this is useful 10 out of 10 combats. And then this third one here, this is very narrow usage, only uses on some sort of combo team, or if you have something very specific in mind. Yes, it's +3 sight charges, but they all disappear right away. So that's really not worth it 90% of the time. So only use it if you have a very specific plan in mind. Otherwise, +1 charge is a super good way to go. And the 2 ways that Nezglekt heals is sight and insane. So the other thing you're going to want is insane charges. And when you get down here, you're just going for more charges. You don't need these other 2. They're like, if you're maybe doing a team comp that does mind resistance, like a lot of mind damage, like a Gustav game, have someone pick this up, but probably not Nez, because Nez applies so much insane stacks, like so many instances of insane. Sorry, I need a drink. So many instances of insane that you'll get a lot of mileage out of this +1 charge. And then don't mind this dark thing. This is very team specific. Nezglekt should have lots of extra free perks to spend once you get a max level. So in this case, I got, for this team comp, I'm going a dark team. I needed someone to pick up this this 25% more dark damage, which is super expensive to get to, and Nezglekt was able to afford it. Otherwise, maybe pick up some of these courage things if you're doing that, or some vulnerable if someone still needs to pick that up. You'll of course still get the +1 card at the beginning of the game, because that just makes the first turn smoother. And yeah, that's about it. Maybe some very narrow cases you might pick up the +1 vitality or the +1 regen, just because they only cost 1 here. But at the point that you're going to use them is super late in the game. Oh, sorry, there's one other one. So if you remember with the Chosen One, I'll look at it here in a second, that it applied vulnerable to all monsters. So it is actually very viable to pick up this +1 charges on a Nezglekt. You're not going to get any use out of it except for 1 card, but in that 1 card you're going to get, like, normally it does what, it's like 4 charges. Let's go look at it. So Where is it? Chosen one. So there's a super late game pickup, but 4 uses, 1 vulnerable to L monsters. So with that one perk selection, so 3 perk points, you'll be getting, 4 extra vulnerable times however many monsters are alive. So it can add up really quick. So it's very narrow, but it is one of those things to consider if you have extras lying around, because he does apply it at some point in the game. And if you do pick up that perk, oh, I can find it, I swear. If you do pick this up, that also opens you up to be the one to carry up like the nullifier or the on hit does vulnerable weapon. I think it's called Venom Fang, because if you recall, in our deck, we do have an AoE card, and we're going to pick up another one later. So, or if you could do that on hit version, that's when the spectral missiles comes into its glory. Is if you're picking up these on hit items and you're doing that vulnerable stack and you're doing that kind of debuff synergy, you can get multiple hits with the spectral missiles, which will trigger your weapon, your on hit weapon, a lot more. So when we get to items, I'll do a callback to spectral missiles if you can remember it there. And yeah, that was starting deck. Did perks. Now let's do Act 2. If you have any questions, please let me know. I am happy to answer. Yeah, so we are Act 2, Nezglekt deck. Where am I at? I can do this. I always click on the wrong screen there, without fail. Alright. So we picked up our talent card, Night Terror. We've dropped one of the clarities. I'm still keeping it just because it's a filler card that I like. I'm fine keeping the fanaticism. Why am I fine keeping the fanaticism? Did I open up the wrong? Pardon me. I feel like I had a clairvoyance. Oh, I remember what happened. So I hadn't actually picked up clairvoyance yet in this run, but I should be buying it. I just didn't have the shards. So you'd have clairvoyance here. So that would be instead of this clarity. Still have fanaticism because I'm running clairvoyance and Anthem of Hope, and so my energy cost is fairly okay. And if you notice, I've added these inner fires. This expected prophecy is back in the deck, and it's the blue version, the one that costs 1. And basically, I have a lot of these 1-cost skills, and that's because I'm prepping for, if you recall, this resourceful talent. I know that halfway through the second act, I'll level up, and for the boss, like it's gonna make the first couple of fights harder on me because I'm gonna have to not have enough energy to cast all my spells. But for the end of the act, for the boss, I'm gonna have resourceful online, and I want that online to make sure that I'm at full capacity on heals for my team. So I've added a couple 1-cost skills, and if you just go with skill and 1-cost, blam, here are all the ones to consider, except for that one. I don't recommend that one. Like fortune telling can be pretty fun, because even though it's 1-cost, once you get the resourceful talent, it becomes a 0-cost. So it just basically becomes a clarity that also says scry. So this becomes a very good card once you have the level 3 talent. And then Innervate, the 1-cost versions of Innervates can be interesting if one of your teammates needs more energy. Your resourceful talent says this is a 0-cost card, which means you're trading 1 card for 1 energy for your teammate, which can sometimes be very useful. And then, yeah, Omen and Peril and Prescriptions are very narrow case. I mentioned them. We're not going to go into them. Just keep an eye out looking for them. They're too deep to describe the edge cases on, but when you have a free day, go play around with those. Let's see. I corrupted this Detoxifier, got a corrupted one, so I just cut the old one. I still don't want too many sources of buffer because I still have Banish. Expected Prophecy. So let's talk about Expected Prophecy. So, oh, not 1-cost. There we go. The default version says 1 energy to lose a card, which is really horrible. The upgraded orange one says 0 energy, lose a card, filter your deck a little bit. The 1-cost one says 1 energy, gain a card. And that you can sometimes do 1 energy gain a card, but if you recall, energy is actually the premium resource of the two. You get less energy a turn than you do cards. So what you really like to do is wait until you get this resourceful talent, and then it becomes for you a 0 cost gain a card. And not only does it gain a card, but it's also filter your deck a little bit. And placing 1 card on the top of your deck can have some very powerful, let's go look at the terminology. Can have some really powerful effects. So with the expected prophecy, what you do is you get Vampiric Tutor. Like, this isn't super late game case, but you can start planning around for if you do luck into a Vampiric Tutor, you can, with expected prophecy, put the really expensive card back on top of your deck and then cast the tutor, and it says, hey, look, I found it. And so you could, like, you draw this 10 cost card, you're like, crap, I want to put it back on top of my deck. And you do that, and you get cheated out with a tutor. So I mentioned that because Nezglekt is the best person for doing that because of the free expected prophecies. And if you had kept one from from the starting of the game, you can now have 2 or 3 of them right now. And so you have a really good chance of finding the card you want, putting it on the top of your deck, and finding that tutor card to do the thing, which is why I think I said search. What was the... sorry. The 2 cards I said let's not talk about. Omen Apparel. This says reveal from your draw pile. So I decided I will talk about it. I apologize. Because it deals with expected prophecy. So if you find this super heavy... this card that you want to discount, you can expected prophecy, put it on top of the deck, Omen Apparel to find it, and discount it so that you can cast it more often. And that's if you have these like super crazy powerful healing spells that cost an arm and a leg, like Desperate Prayers and Sacred Ceremonies. Those are the 2 that most often you do that kind of play pattern with. But that's only possible because you have expected prophecy and you're going to discount that card or cheat it in some manner with like Fated Fortune, your talent card there. Alright, so I think that covered everything. We got all these skills that draw cards. So, I mean, if you just go skill, draw, like, not 4+. These are all fantastic cards for you because you are Nezglekt and you have that skillful talent. So it just turns all these cards into 0 cost cards, which makes them oh so much more powerful. Alright, I think that covers Nezglekt at Act 2. Remember, there is a... You do want to consider either Spectral Missiles or... why can't I find it? Clairvoyance. It's right here at the beginning. It starts with a C. You can tell I'm tired. I'm trying to punch out this video because I really would like to have another video for you guys because there won't be any this weekend. Items. So with Nezglekt, you're going to want sight items. Specifically ones that amplify your sight charges, or... So here's that damage with hit I was talking about. If you get Raven Staff, Spectral Missiles goes up. Or they take your sight charges and turn them into other things. Scryer Staff is the most cliche thing to run on Nezglekt. Once you get your Resourceful and a Scryer Staff, everything is on fire. It's fantastic. Even yourself sometimes. Well, actually, I think they removed the ability to put sight on yourself. You used to be able to set yourself on fire, so it's pretty cool. And I think there's another sight card here. Insane to Sight is pretty nice. Here it is. Oh, they changed Clairvoyant Scroll. It used to be the other way. Spider Queen Eye. So this one you can guarantee by going to the green biome. And this one says for every sight you apply is poison. And as we said, we're already applying so much sight because we're doing sight every time we cast a skill, and we're doing that 3 times a turn. So this can rack up really fast. You wanna find a lot of plus sight charges, and then get the Spider Queen Eye or the Scryer Staff, and either poison or burn the world down around you. I do overall, on average, enjoy the Divination Orb over your starting item. I enjoy your starting item over much of the other stuff, including Crystal Ball. And I enjoy Divination over the Raven Staff, unless you very specifically are trying to build around the Raven Staff. Because these +2 sight charges go a long way. Like, just imagine Divination Orb plus Spider Queen Eye, and you're in a world that there's so much poison going on. Oh, items. There's more items to talk about. Maybe there's not. Sight, insane. What was the one other one? There is... I know there's something with insane that I want to talk about. So this on hit, this is again another one that I was talking about with the spectral missiles. You don't, like, Hypno Shell is nice because you do apply insane to yourself, but nothing else about it helps you. So overall, I think it's a trap card item to pick up for yourself. I mean, try it out, see if you like it. I feel there's better armor for you. So even though it says immune to insane, it's not really worth it to you. Oh, here it is, Terror Ring. That's the one. So in play, insane applies dark. That's one I was hoping to get on my dark run. So really, if you're looking for a dark run, you're looking for Terror Ring. If you're looking for a poison run, you're looking for the Spider Eye. You have a lot of options for Nezglekt here. Yeah, speed. Speed is important for Nezglekt, so you're also going to pick up speed items. But just generally useful items and anything that transfers, specifically ones that transform Sight or Insane to something else, because your main goal as a healer is already to apply those charges to your enemies so that you can heal off of Mental Leech. Alright, last but not least, we are going to Act 4. So here we are, Act 4, Nezglekt. This be the final version of his deck for this game. Keynotes here. We talked about all this. Meditate, this is of the healers, this is the I grab as many of them as I can card. If there's 20 of them, I'd probably have them. It's just a little dangerous against the final boss to have that many Vanish cards. Expected Prophecies. If I had a second one, I'd probably run it instead of this Inner Fire. I'm still keeping this one Mental Shake just as a non-Vanish card in my deck, and I need a critical mass of spells to activate this chosen one. I might consider cutting one of these Clairvoyances in favor of another Mind Visions or just a generically useful card, because I have to prepare for the boss, which is why the Mind Visions is back in the deck now, so that once we get to the boss, we actually have some decent form of damage on any turns that we don't need to do any sort of healing. I have one decent single targeted heal spell. So one thing I forgot to mention so far with Nezglekt is, since he is an AoE healer, like, he has no targeted heals with his passive. It's just a blanket, hey, everyone heals X amount. Some of your heroes might fall behind on healing, so it's nice to have a single target heal spell of a decent quality, since we didn't pick up any of the healing perks or the vitality perks. And this is why I say maybe you pick up a vitality perk, is because you might pick up something like Desperate Prayer. And the reason that this is here is, hey, someone fell behind, or I know a certain person's going to take a lot of damage, and I'm just doing small amounts of healing to the whole team. This helps kind of catch them back up. And it's also very nice to have a speed manipulation item and say, oh, +6 fast. So, and these type of cards you'll see a lot on Nezglekt, because if you recall, I said the Sacred Ceremony, Desperate Prayer, Sacred Ceremony, or in particularly, I like the Mesmeric Barrage. Mesmeric Mirage. There's always one word that I stutter over in the game, in a video. Mesmeric Mirage or Pandemonium are also very good options for Nezglekt. I like Pandemonium a lot, if and this is where I said that vulnerable charges comes into play. It's really good. Nezglekt can be your vulnerable applier in the late game. He can't do it early game, but in the late game, between Chosen One and Pandemonium, you can get a lot of mileage out of it. And pick your poison on which one you can afford to cast, the 4 cost or the 6 cost. 6 cost has repeat, but, you know, it costs 6, so you have to have a plan to cast it. You can't just cast it for freezies. Yeah. Yep. I think that covers everything here. Have a plan for the final boss. Find some way to monopolize your Sight and Insane charges and get as many of them as you can, because that is how you heal. And abuse the mess out of 1-cost skill cards, because that is where Nezglekt shines. Yep. I think last but not least is team comps. So in this particular comp, I picked Nez because he has a little bit of overlap with Dark. I was hoping for a Terror Ring, or some of his spells can apply Dark, like Night Terror. And Night Terror also helps bring down heavy single targets, which these two have a little bit of trouble with. Well, Maluka specifically has trouble with. So he in general pairs with Maluka very well because Maluka, when she applies her dark passive, let's look at this. When she applies dark, heal the most damaged hero. And it's that heal the most damaged hero part that's important because Nezglekt just says blanket heal everyone. So if one person's lower than everyone else, he doesn't catch that. Whereas Maluka fits really well with that and takes care of the most damaged people and brings everyone up to the same amount of health. So Maluka helps even out the health pools, and Nezglekt will just evenly heal them all up after that. So these two pair very well together as a healer combo. If she's going dark damage, she's still healing enough to help Nezglekt where he lacks as a healer. And that's usually what you'll find is, especially in the early game, Nezglekt needs a little help with healing. That's why I classify him as a half healer. And then Dark Maluka is a half healer to pair him with. So that goes really well. Let's go look at other people. So I have to go to a different interface to do that. What did I say? Sight. He also pairs really well with Sight teams. As you can see, I have him here in a Sight team right here from my an Obelisk challenge. Since Sylvia does really well with Sight, Nezglekt fits in there. Any of these scouts can help apply Sight, which can help Nezglekt's healing. There's not really an insane damage caster outside of, well, I guess Gustav. So Gustav, he pairs well with the Frog because Gustav will have some plus insane charges on the enemies, which, remember, Nezglekt heals from Sight and Insane. So all the scouts pair really well with Nezglekt, and then I would say Maluka is his best buddy. Yeah, other than that, he just fits in as a healer. You're very rarely going to use him as a main damage dealer. He's usually some sort of support or healer or half healer. Or main healer, but the main healer you have to actively, like, normally you have to work to force that to happen. And, yeah. That's all I got for you today. If you have any questions, please let me know. Let me know what you liked about the video, please, because like I said, I work well on praise. And thank you so much for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers. That makes being able to make these videos in the future a lot easier because now YouTube thinks of me as a real person and content creator. So I will catch you all later. Peace.